Ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding for Her Majesty, the Queen.
$40,000 people may need to be evacuated. That's 80 towns and villages impacted.
I don't want to blow your mind, but I'm not always right. There are just so many false dawns.
It's the same old, same old.
Could bring millions more migrants to these shores, uncontrolled and unmanageable.
Are you getting set, Home Secretary?
It concluded by a majority that the policy is therefore unlawful.
Please welcome to the stage your host for this evening, Alexander Armstrong.
Your Majesty, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to the Foreign Press Association Media Awards, the FPAMAs. Well, congratulations, all of you. You've made your deadline, you've filed your replies, and look at you all. Gosh, don't you look so trim without your flak jackets? Wonderful. Now, a little bit of housekeeping before we get underway. Can you please all turn off all mobiles and please don't photograph this part of the evening on your telephones, as you may spoil other people's enjoyment. There are, as you can see, plenty of official photographers present and photographs will be readily available. So, welcome to the 2023 edition of the FPA Media Awards ceremonies celebrating excellence in television, radio, print and web-based news reporting. This year marks the 135th anniversary of the founding of the FPA, and the FPA is very honoured to have Her Majesty the Queen here for this very special birthday evening. We're also delighted to welcome our sponsors, without whose generosity the awards would simply not take place. And this year we are again grateful to the Sultanate of Oman, our gold sponsor this evening, whose delicious Omani treats you may already have sampled in the foyer. And if you haven't yet, don't worry. There will be plenty left over once the ceremony is over. We would also like to thank our silver sponsors, Trenitalia UK, Dentacay, Carassa, the Thompson Foundation, Campari Group UK, who've just provided those delicious cocktails, Barabino and Partners for the design work, and Familia Cecchi for the absolutely delicious wine that we are going to be drinking this evening. We're also delighted to welcome two returning junior sponsors in CFE Finance and the SMMT, so a huge thank you to all of them. And welcome to all of you. It is just so wonderful to see you all here. I would now like to introduce and welcome to the stage the president of the FPA from Stern Magazine, Germany, Dagmar Zeeland.
Wow. Your Majesty, Your Excellencies, dear friends and colleagues, it is a huge honor and a great pleasure to welcome you all to the FPA Awards ceremony. This annual highlight of the Foreign Press Association's work is an opportunity to celebrate the world's best journalism, but also an opportunity to remind us all of the importance of a free media and the vital role it plays in our democratic societies. I am incredibly excited, but also, if I'm honest, slightly nervous to welcome our guest of honor tonight, Her Majesty the Queen. It is the greatest honor to have you here with us. I was told good speeches start with a joke or an anecdote. And since I'm German, I thought, it's probably safer to go with the anecdote. So let me take you back to 1888, when a serial killer roamed the gaslit streets of East London. The world's press descended on London to cover this gruesome story, but they faced a problem. They couldn't get access. The police ignored the lone foreign reporters whose papers they'd never heard of, let alone been able to pronounce. So the reporters went to the pub. I mean, this is England, it must have been a pub. And over a pint, one of them must have said, "Hey, why don't we form an association? Strength in numbers, right?" Fact check. I have, of course, no proof that pub scene ever happened. But it is a fact that the Foreign Press Association was founded 135 years ago, at the time of the Jack the Ripper murders. It's not a connection we are particularly proud of. However, we are proud of being the oldest foreign press association in the world. A lot has changed since those foggy London nights, but some things remain. We still don't get access, although we are getting better at it. Nowadays, we would have great trouble fitting around a pub table. We have over 500 full members from all corners of the world. Our journalists are regularly quoted in the British media. You hear and see them on British TV and radio programs and podcasts. And this spring, we fought and won an important battle for press freedom on behalf of all of you, international and British journalists. We campaigned successfully against the introduction of an accreditation fee for the Conservative Party, wanted to charge all journalists who needed to attend their party conference. Our open letter, which was quoted in many British media outlets, was signed by nearly all of our members. It was an important fight, and we won it by standing together. That's strength in numbers. This has been a proud moment for us, but far from the only important event this year. In fact, it's been an exceptionally busy year. From the coronation of King Charles III and Your Majesty, during which the FPA provided a press centre and worked with the government on the complex accreditation process, to organising many useful briefings and press trips for our members on subjects ranging from politics to economics to science and culture. This year, we have also found the perfect permanent home for the FPA's rich and fascinating archive, provided by our wonderful partners at City University London. We are delighted to work with this academic institution, whose master programme in international journalism is highly respected in the industry. So if you ever wanted to read up on my slightly embellished story about Jack the Ripper, or anything FPA related for that matter, you know where to find it. At this point, I want to say a very special thank you on behalf of all our members to our director and very own superwoman, Deborah Bonetti. Without you, Deborah, much of this would not have happened. You really are incredible. But this has also been a year of events we would all much rather forget. The war in Ukraine, the terrible earthquakes in Turkey and Syria in February, followed by Morocco in September, the ongoing conflict in Yemen, and only recently the atrocities committed by Hamas in Israel, followed by Israel's incursion into Gaza. Horror upon horror, covered by many of you present here tonight. Others cannot be with us, including our member Aman Soldin from AFP, who was one of 40 journalists who have lost their lives this year. Our thoughts are with Aman's family and colleagues. 509 other journalists have been detained, reports the organization Reporters Without Borders. Journalism is under pressure, not only in conflict zones and totalitarian states, but also in our democracies. Fake news and manipulation, the vicious trolling and intimidation of colleagues, especially women, on social media, but also political pressures on public broadcasters and financial restraints on independent media have made our jobs a whole lot more difficult over recent years. The more impressive is the quality of this year's entrants for our 14 awards categories. The sheer talent, ambition, dogged determination, and courage on display in many of these entries made it hard for our jurors to whittle them down to our list of nominees. I wish those nominees all the best of luck, but regardless of who will later end up on the stage to receive one of the coveted awards, you are all worthy winners, so congratulations to you all. And of course, a special shout out to the 3 nominees for the Thompson Foundation Young Journalist Award. Jemima Afridi, Yara El-Mour, and Zuha Siddiqui, 3 amazing young women from Pakistan and Lebanon, far from the easiest places in the world to work in for women. You are the future of international journalism. Please keep going. I would like to wrap up by thanking all our amazing sponsors whose generosity made this wonderful evening possible. First and foremost, a great big thank you to the Sultanate of Oman, who are not only this year's awards gold sponsors, but also welcomed a group of FPA members to Oman recently and introduced them to this beautiful country. Thank you for your incredible hospitality. Our thanks also go to our sponsor Campari, who even created a signature cocktail for this event. I hope you've all had a chance to try it. Thank you, the Thompson Foundation, for once more sponsoring the Young Journalist Award. And thank you, Trenitalia, Carassa, Dentacay, SMMT, CFE Finance, Czechy Wines, and Parabino. We are very grateful for your support. And now, have a wonderful evening.
It is now my very great pleasure to welcome to the stage Her Majesty the Queen.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a huge pleasure to be with you here this evening to celebrate the 135th anniversary of the Foreign Press Association. and to reflect on the many achievements as the world's oldest and biggest association of foreign journalists. But I cannot begin without also reflecting that as we gather, journalists, photographers, and their support teams are even now risking their lives. We think particularly of those reporting from Ukraine and the Middle East in these most difficult of times. By joining you this evening, I'm following in the footsteps of my husband, an honorary member of the FPA, who joined you at these awards in 2008. On that occasion, he described your role as not only to look at the world and study the way it works, but to report what you see accurately, to explain it, and indeed to interpret it. In doing so, you shape the view and define the perspective of millions of people, and that is an enormous responsibility. Now, I know secondhand a little of the responsibility of your profession. There are journalists in my family, and I've even been subject to one or two stories about myself over the years. I've also had the opportunity to visit a significant number of newsrooms, and I've seen just how tough your work is, particularly, if I dare say so, for women, who, despite the many hurdles they have faced, have been among the bravest reporters of all. From trailblazers like Martha Gellhorn and Christiane Amanpour, to those such as Mary Colvin, an FPA Journalist of the Year, and Daphne Caruana Galizia, who have so tragically paid with their lives. Their courage was only matched by their conviction that the truth matters. Perhaps this has never been more evident than in our digital age, where disinformation runs rife and where female journalists are increasingly targeted on social media. The FPA has done much to promote and protect women throughout your long history, appointing your first female president in 1955, and more recently providing specialised training for women to deal with disruptive and abusive behaviour from members of the public. For this, all your readers and broadcast audiences are in your debt. As the late great Dame Anne Leslie wrote, it's amongst the sacred duties of journalists to face the glacier in the cupboard and to expose its coldness and cruelty in the bright, clear, humanising light of day. That is what she and all of you do. This is especially true in one area of your work for which I'd like particularly to thank you: raising awareness of domestic and sexual abuse against women in every part of the globe. The FPA was, of course, founded in 1888, when foreign correspondents came to the United Kingdom to report on the Jack the Ripper murders and decided to band together to secure better access to information and sources. Although we might deplore some of the more sensational approaches to these terrible events, the fact is that the FPA grew out of the need to reveal and condemn violence against women. And this remains a key part of journalism today. You have the ability to break the corrosive silence that frequently surrounds abuse. You bring into the open the voices of victims. You break taboos. You shine a light on these heinous crimes, and you guide the public on what they can do to help. As the foreign correspondent, Christina Lamb, who I know is here tonight, makes clear in her devastating book, Our Bodies, Our Battlefield, rape and sexual abuse continue to be a pervasive and all too often hidden feature of conflict zones all over the globe. Ladies and gentlemen, as my husband observed 15 years ago, yours is an awe-inspiring responsibility. You question, debate, and analyse, and thus protect what is so easy for us to take for granted: true freedom of of expression. As I said at the London Press Club Awards in 2011, I believe freedom of expression to be at the heart of our democratic system. In this, you play a vital, if not pivotal, role. Now, take courage from the words of one of our greatest writers and former journalist, Sir Tom Stoppard. I still believe that if your aim is to change the world, journalism is a more immediate, short-term weapon. May you continue to use it wisely. Thank you.
I'm just going to ask Her Majesty to remain on stage for a moment and call to the stage the Director of the Foreign Press Association, Deborah Bonetti.
Your Majesty, I don't have a speech ready, but I want to hand you this, and it was part of my pitch in the invitation to yourself to come here tonight. I just want to say we're very honoured to have you as honorary member for life of this, for life of this association, and it was high time that you joined your husband as our other honorary member. And there are not many associations who can actually show off that they have two crowned king and queen as their member. So thank you very much for being with us.
in the aftermath of one of the deadliest earthquakes in Turkey's history.
I do respect and accept the judgment of the court.
And this is why today we've increased bank rate by 0.25%.
I'm Rupert Murdoch.
The incomparable Glenda Jackson. So thank you very much indeed.
Please welcome to the stage your host, Alexander Armstrong.
Good evening, ladies and good night, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the FPA Media Awards. This is the 24th annual FPA Awards ceremony, and there will be some in the room, I dare say, who will have been to every single one, and yet still remember not a thing. I am Alexander Armstrong. Don't worry, I'm not expecting you to know that who I am or anything. That's not going to mean anything to you. I'm just Alexander Armstrong. I happen to host a daytime quiz show on BBC One. So while I may be the darling of the long-term unemployed, I am at best dimly known to those who hold down meaningful work. I mean, I dare say that the TV in the Frontline Club probably does play Pointless at some point today, maybe for 5 minutes before the 6 o'clock news. But, so yes, there you are. I am Sophie Rayworth's warm-up man. And what a lovely job that is, too. I also present the morning show on Classic FM. Perhaps you've heard that if you've ever been in a lift. But for those of you who work and take the stairs, I'm Alexander Armstrong. Good evening. It is lovely to be here. I have 4 teenage boys. Crikey, it's lovely to be anywhere. Classic FM's fun, though. Oh, that's fun. I bet you didn't know this about Classic FM. I bet you didn't know this. We don't have any records at Classic FM. Well, obviously, we don't have any CDs. We don't do any digital streaming at Classic FM. Every piece of music you hear, every single note you hear is played live by a 100-piece orchestra in the studio alongside me. It's very lovely. We all chip in, the newsreader gets the cello, David Mellor gets the horn. It's very lovely. But I do love Classic FM. This is, in fact, the longest I've ever spoken for in public life for 5 years without introducing Fingal's Cave. But apart from that, it is heaven. The listeners call me AA, which I love. I mean, I assume that's because it's my initials and not because they've seen me flashing by the side of the road, but I couldn't swear to it. Now, tonight, we celebrate excellence in journalism. How? Well, with a series of spectacularly shambolic acceptance speeches. I cannot wait. We are joined this evening by the cream of British and international journalism, business people, politicians, and Take a Break magazine competition winners. Oh, no, sorry, that was last week. Sorry. But frankly, I am amazed that you are all here. I mean, that is just fantastic. I imagined you would all be in Rwanda or in the Middle East or standing outside Suella Braverman's front door. Does Suella Braverman have a front door? I'm expecting something altogether more, maybe a cellar door, There we are. But obviously, it is colossally exciting to be here and wonderful to have royalty at this event this evening. The one and only John Simpson. Fabulous. Give you joy of it, John. But actually, for everyone being here This is a huge achievement. Just to be in this room, that is a massive achievement, especially for those who came by Southwestern trains. But thanks also to all our sponsors. I mean, crikey, look at this. Look at all these logos behind me on the wall. I feel like I should be criticizing VAR or something. Amazing. Now, we have a couple of housekeeping rules. I did mention the acceptance speeches earlier, and obviously we do want to hear from the winners, but please be very, very brief, because we have got a great many awards to get through. And, you know, we can only hold a grin on our faces for so long. Immediately after presentations, the wonderful Jill will be here to guide winners to the right of stage to be snapped, to collect their certificates and to pick up special edition bottles of Campari and Aperol, kindly given by Campari UK. I say pick up. These are bloody 3-litre bottles. They're enormous. I defy you to take those home. I suggest you find a quiet corner and a friend and polish them off. Winners will need to collect a box for their award because they are made of crystal and are apt to break very easily. Probably a mistake for me to bring them here in my rucksack. Sponsors, if you want to photograph the winner in your category, you have to come to the photo point as soon as they have received it. You snooze, you lose. And at the end of the ceremony, runners-up can collect a certificate for the photo point just over by the bar. Hopefully, the tear stains will have dried by then. Now, finally, award nominees are printed in your program in alphabetical order. So you can't tell if you've won from where you are in the order where you've been printed. Obviously, the organisers are not that stupid, but the fact that I've been asked to point that out to you implies that perhaps they think you are. Now, we are all set for an unpredictable, exciting, dramatic, an incredibly sexy couple of hours, so the sooner we get these awards out the way, the better. Right, this year, as ever, the entries were numerous and record-breaking, and the quality extremely high. One of the external judges said that it shows that good journalism is really strong right now, but it makes choosing the best so much harder. So, if you're nominated here tonight, you should be very, very proud of yourself, as you've already beaten off extremely stiff competition. And if you aren't a winner, you can console yourself with the thought that the judges had a very, very difficult time choosing. Okay, on to our first award. And we start with the FPA member category, Story of the Year by a full member of the FPA, which had a very high number of very good entries. And I would like to invite His Excellency Dr. Abdullah Al-Harasi, Minister of Information of the Sultanate of Oman, to the stage. Oman, a gold sponsor for this evening, is one of the most beautiful countries in the Middle East. And with almost 2,000 miles of coastline, as well as mountains, wadis, and incredible wildlife, the Foreign Press Association has just returned from a very successful fact-finding press trip to Oman. Delicious it was too, and they can vouch for this. Now, here is a video from Oman, so we can all see for ourselves.
The land, the human, you won't be forgotten. In any memory, belonging to you or to others, it is the land that is wrapped in beauty, knowing the steps of fondness, displaying a sense of bewilderment. While creating a feeling of belonging, the giver of affection and the bearer of kindness, through uttering words which suits her graceful presence, with utmost confidence of a splendid mountain rise, and vast desert line, and all the ancient houses and unique forts that speak of justice and courage. So do you know about this land? Or about this human? Who resides and lives on the land of Oman.
Now, the first nominee in this category is Danielle Hamamjian with cameraman Mark Damour from CTV News Canada with Life Under the Taliban for Afghan Women. The judges praised this instructive and insightful report into the plight of women under the Taliban in Afghanistan, broadcast on International Women's Day. Despite the high risk of terror attacks, Danielle and her team were able to illustrate what life had become in the most repressive country in the world for women and girls. The second nominee in this category is Birgit Maas for German TV channel Deutsche Welle with Public Order versus Civil Rights. Is liberal Britain under threat? This documentary was described as a very clever, useful piece from a foreign correspondent, clearly doing a good job. They thought it a fascinating and ambitious piece that tried to pull together many different strands to show the different ways civil liberties are currently being challenged in the UK. The third nominee is Jörg Schindler for Der Spiegel, the German news website, for Britain in Crisis, an in-depth investigation into whether it is the pandemic and the war in Ukraine or more fundamental reasons that have caused Britain's cost of living crisis. The panel thought this was an extremely interesting and well-reported article, which gave voice to those suffering hardship on the fringes of society. May I now ask His Excellency, Dr. Al-Harasi, to reveal the winner.
Thank you. The winner of the FPA Member Story of the Year is Birgit Maas.
This was the clear winner, a thoughtful and very high-quality piece on the rapid changes in British political life, an excellent and ambitious piece of foreign reporting. Let's watch.
Yesterday's laws are simply not fit for purpose.
What's happening to liberal Britain? How free and fair is Britain today? The right to protest, the right to strike, and the right to asylum are all in the spotlight.
According to opinion polls, the public broadly backs the new criminalisation of some forms of protest. But does that justify curtailing a fundamental human right?
Illegal migration makes us all less safe.
Last year, over 45,000 people, more than ever, made the dangerous journey via the English Channel.
They will not stop coming here until the world knows that if you enter Britain illegally, you will be detained and swiftly removed.
May I now ask His Excellency Dr. Abdullah Al-Harasi, Minister of Information of the Sultanate of Oman, to present the award. And now for the Environment Story of the Year, sponsored by Trenitalia UK, who run the West Coast Main Line and the C2C franchise and have launched a long-term strategy. Oh, I beg your pardon. Would you like to say a few words?
Just a couple of words. Thank you so much. Thank you. That's really wow. Thank you, first of all, to my editor and co-creator, Hannah Cleaver. We were both really passionate doing this story together, and we've really worked a lot. And thank you for Deutsche Welle for putting the trust in us and giving us the opportunity. Also, thank you to the brilliant team, Fabian von der Mark and Till Boller, the commissioning editors, and then to Fred Rodkopf, the cameraman, and Marwan Kafaji, who I've worked together with for 20 years, and it means a lot to me that I can always rely on you. So
So thank you very much. And beating democracy, but it's also fragile, so there is a lot to lose, and let's not forget that.
And now for the Environment Story of the Year, sponsored by Trenitalia UK, who run the West Coast Main Line and the C2C franchise, and have launched a long-term strategy for greener rail travel, heavily reducing their carbon impact. Please welcome Ernesto Sicilia, Managing Director of Trenitalia UK, to the stage to present this award. Now, the first nomination is from the BBC and the BBC World Service. It's Rebecca Henschke, Astudestra Ajeng, Kelvin Brown, Joel Gunter, and Sam Piranti with Monkey Haters, an undercover investigation that revealed a global monkey torture ring that stretched from Indonesia to the UK and US. A really shocking and emotional story that one judge claimed kept returning to haunt her. It revealed that customers around the world were paying people in Indonesia to maim and kill baby long-tailed macaques on film. The judges praised this very powerful story and were delighted that it led to policy changes in the UK and the US. The second nominees are Jess Kelly, Owen Pinnell, and BBC Arabic investigations with Under Poisoned Skies for BBC News and BBC Arabic. The judges found this a very strong documentary with fascinating detail about how Iraqi citizens are being put at risk from air pollution and the wider climate crisis. Despite difficulties encountered, the team showed remarkable perseverance and brilliant storytelling, which included powerful case studies and data that exposed how oil companies conceal the level of pollution. The third finalists in this category are Elisangela Mendonça, Andrew Waisley, and Fabio Zucca for their report, Collagen Craze Drives Deforestation and Rights Abuses, for the Bureau of Investigative Journalism. A well and sensitively done investigation that connected the manufacture of bovine collagen, a popular health and beauty supplement, with tropical forest loss and violence against indigenous people. The judges thought it was important to show that the commercial activities of the companies in even most unlikely fields had consequences for climate change. May I now ask Ernesto Sicilia, Managing Director of Trenitalia UK, to reveal the winner.
And the winner of the Environmental Story of the Year are Jess Kelly and Owen Pinnell.
This was another clear winner, a very strong documentary with some brilliant storytelling. Let's watch.
ماكو دولة بالعالم تضع منشآت نفطية ومشاعل للنفط بالقرب من السكان عدا العراق. وعندما رجعت للدكتور قلت له أنا عايش بهيك منطقة فقال لي هاي الأشياء السبب رئيسي بهذا المرض.
نجم 13 سنة عمر مصابة بضغط الدم اللمفاوي الحاد. شميش؟ منيش درسي؟ والله شفت. زين وقاعد تستجيبين كل زين أسف عليه زوجي. ما ضوج.
They're extremely heavy. I'd like to start by just thanking my wonderful colleagues at BBC Arabic, Mohammed, Mus, Rosie, Carol, and Tim, and Owen, who all worked with me on Under Poison Skies to expose how multinational oil companies are putting children's lives at risk by gas flaring illegally close to their homes. I'm extremely privileged to be receiving this award, but it's difficult to derive the same amount of joy when so many of our colleagues are being killed in such large numbers. Today, the most conservative number of journalists killed since October the 7th stands at 48. This Saturday alone, 5 journalists were killed, including Bilal Jadallah, the president of the Gaza House of Journalists, a renowned advocate for press freedom and a father figure to many young and inspiring journalists. He was killed by an Israeli airstrike while fleeing to the south of Gaza in his car. I know from conversations with colleagues that many in our profession are worried about expressing solidarity with Palestinian journalists, but I believe that this is the bare minimum that we should do, especially as many of these journalists are paying not only with their own lives, but with those of their entire families. Less than a week ago, at the Rory Peck Awards, I read out a quote from a Gazan journalist, Salman al-Bashir, who broke down on air when he learned of his colleague's death. And I spoke of the 37 journalists at that time who'd been killed. That number has now increased by 10. I don't think we realize just how mind-boggling this is. And one day we'll look back on this period and wonder why we stayed silent for so long. Institutions such as the Foreign Press Association Institutions such as the Foreign Press Association, which has always played a leading role in the protection of journalist safety within the UK, can play a role in extending that same protection to journalists risking their lives in Gaza to bring us the truth. Thank you.
And now onto the TV news story of the year, and I would like to invite Paul Davies, until recently ITN's senior foreign correspondent for 39 years, with many of those spent reporting from the front line in conflicts. The first nominee is Nima El-Bajir with Hidden from View, Sexual Abuse and Torture in Iranian Black Sites for CNN Worldwide. This widely followed up report about Iranian women being brought to safety in Iraq's Kurdish region was cited by the US Special Envoy to Iran and the UN as evidence of the regime's attempt to silence dissent. These women were fleeing from detention centers in Iran where they'd been forced to endure and witness sexual torture. The judges thought this was a great piece of informative reporting about a topic that was not often covered. The next nominee is Orla Guerin for The Children of Yemen's Forgotten War on BBC News. The judges praised Orla's perseverance in sticking with the story of Yemen. On her 7th trip to the country since the conflict began, Orla considers the plight of children who remain in the firing line as the war continues. She focuses on 3 little boys in a city surrounded by Houthi forces who are all victims of shelling with missing limbs. The judges thought it was excellently done and very moving. The third nominees for the TV news story of the year are Quentin Somerville, Darren Conway, with On Zero Line Ukraine for BBC News. A dramatic piece of storytelling that described the odds the Ukrainian forces faced and the price being paid. Quentin Somerville was able to negotiate frontline access and follow the 1st Tank Brigade as they tried to keep back Russian forces in Donbass. It gave a real sense of being plunged into the middle of the conflict. The judges made special mention of cameraman Darren Conway for his terrific pictures. May I now invite Paul Davies to reveal the winner.
tonight. 3 stunning finalists, but the winner took us to the trenches, and you really felt that you were there in Ukraine. Quentin Somerville and Darren Conway.
Once again, this was a clear winner. The judges said this was exquisite filmmaking with incredible camera work that gave the story a filmic quality rather than just the story of a news bulletin. Let's watch On Zero Line, Ukraine.
Luba, fast. Separated by incoming fire, camera journalist Darren Conway in here pulls us into the trench. Stewie, there's a bunker here. Q. There's 2 Russian shells that have just come in. I think it's tank fire. Landing very close to these positions.
We're standing at 0 position, and right now we're under mortar fire.
When the next one might be a direct hit. It's hard not to flinch.
We are forming various assault brigades, and we have been given tanks like Abrams. So I think with their help, we will win. And we are Cossacks. We are brave guys. We can handle it.
Quentin Somerville is not able to be here tonight as he is based in Beirut. The award will be collected on his behalf by Paul Danaher, the foreign editor of BBC News.
Yeah, it won't surprise you that they are covering the story in the Middle East, which is where their very exceptional skills really come to play. They wanted me to thank the FPA and the judges for giving them this award. They wanted me to also thank their colleagues in Ukraine, Luba, Pedro, Roman, and Stu, who worked with them to try and keep the team safe throughout what was an incredible year of journalism. And they would have also wanted me to mention our colleagues in Gaza, BBC colleagues working in English and Arabic, who, like many other journalists there, are trying to get through this conflict and do their jobs with their families living by them in tents, living through airstrikes. And so they wanted me to say thank you to you, thank you to their colleagues in Ukraine, and thank you to BBC journalists who are working now in the region. Thank you.
And now to the print and web story of the year. This is sponsored by Familia Cecchi, who have kindly provided all the delicious red and white wine that we've been enjoying with our dinner this evening. To present this award, we're delighted to welcome the ever-supportive Ben Smith, UK PR Manager for Familia Cecchi. The first nominees are Paul Carston, David Lewis, Reed Levinson and Libby George of Reuters with Nightmare in Nigeria. The judges were impressed by the problems overcome by the reporting team in this tale of brutal human rights abuses by the Nigerian army in the northeast, where they're fighting Islamist insurgents. Over 10,000 women and children, many of whom had been kidnapped and raped by the militants, were subjected to forced abortions by the army, often without their consent or prior knowledge. The reporters went far beyond the official statements to provide a very comprehensive account of these abuses. The second nomination is for 1843 magazine, Stephanie Clifford, for an autistic man was surfing on the internet on his dad's sofa, then the FBI turned up. A long overdue piece about the way the criminal justice system fails neurodivergent people. By telling the stories of 2 autistic men, Stephanie Clifford was able to highlight the unevenness of their treatment. The first got 5 years for cyberstalking, and the second, defended by high-profile lawyers and with a sympathetic judge, got just a year of home confinement. The judges thought this was a powerful piece that brought an underreported story some much-needed attention, and that it easily deserved a place in the top 3. Zachary Midha, Swati Gupta and Madhu Juf from Bloomberg News are the 3rd finalists with Poisoned Cough Syrup Killed Kids, a 6-month investigation that followed the trail of contaminated cough syrup made in India that killed more than 60 children in Gambia. The judges thought this story, which spanned continents, had many dimensions, both political and commercial. They praised the extremely good and detailed reporting, which raised important questions around corporate responsibility and nationalism. May I now invite Ben Smith, UK PR Manager of Familia Cecchi, to reveal the winner.
The winners of the print and web story of the year are Zachary Midha, Swati Gupta and Madhu Juf for Bloomberg News.
A majority of the judges chose this because they said it was a great example of how a story about business can have human interest at its heart. They found the story was very moving because it touched on a product so readily available to children.
Hello, thank you very much. My name's Anna Edwards. I'm a presenter at Bloomberg Television and also the interim London bureau chief for Bloomberg News. And I'd like to say thank you on behalf of the journalists who will be absolutely thrilled to receive this. And I'm so sorry that they're not able to be here this evening. Thank you from everybody at Bloomberg. Thank you for recognising the wider relevance of the stories that we tell about business and finance. But as Alexander was pointing out, the wider consequences of these business stories. It's much appreciated, this recognition. Thank you very much.
For the radio and podcast story of the year, I have great pleasure in inviting Selin Kipper, member of the board of Karasa, to the stage. Karasa is Turkey's leading kitchen and tableware brand and one of our silver sponsors tonight. They've just opened a new flagship store in Westfield, White City, which you're all invited to visit. The first nominees are Josh Baker, Sarah Obeidet, Joe Kent, Jonathan Aspinall, Emma Rippon for BBC News long-form audio for BBC Sounds 5 Live with the Shamima Begum story. A multi-layered, compellingly told story that shed new light on the Shamima Begum saga. Josh Baker has been following the story since the day she left London and has recorded what she claims is her full account. The team meticulously tested this account, retracing her journey from London to Raqqa with great perseverance. It raised questions about security, migration, and what to do with people who joined ISIS. The second nomination is Nikki Wolff, Max Johnston for The Sound, Mystery of Havana Syndrome, for Project Brazen Goat Rodeo. The result of a year-long reporting journey that dived deeply into the mystery of Havana Syndrome, first noticed in 2016 when US diplomats in Cuba started reporting symptoms of headaches, nosebleeds, and cognitive issues. The judges praised the use of sources in the intelligence world and thought that these were expertly blended with scientific findings and on-the-ground reporting. The third nomination in the radio podcast category is Sahar Zand, Heidi Pett, Sarah Burke, with Dirty Work, the misuse of Interpol red notices for Sky News. A really interesting expose about the dark and frightening world of Interpol red notices, which are issued by countries seeking arrests abroad. It revealed that because of weak safeguards, Interpol can itself be the vehicle of a regime's dirty work, and not always intentionally. May I now invite Selin Kipper, member of the board of Carassa, to reveal the winner.
The winners of the radio and podcast story of the year are Josh Baker, Sarah Obediet, Joe Kent, Jonathan Aspinall, and Emma Rippon for BBC Radio 5 Live BBC Sounds.
Nearly all of the judges voted for this absolutely gripping piece of audio that showed such dogged persistence in investigation. There were genuine revelations about what happened to the 3 British schoolgirls who left to join ISIS in 2014. Let's listen.
Do you accept that you have done something wrong by coming to join ISIS?
Yes, I do.
And what is it that you've done wrong?
Come to Syria, come to ISIS thinking that it was the right thing to do, not fully knowing what I was getting myself into, not knowing that it may have an effect on other people's lives. My coming to Syria, my coming to ISIS.
It's been almost 8 years since Shamima Begum arrived in Raqqa. Now I'm here, sitting on the bank of the Euphrates River. While the city is still dangerous, ISIS are no longer in control. And that means I can search for clues about Shamima Begum's life here.
There you go. It is heavy, Jess. You were right. It's quite heavy. Thank you so much. You know, taking on the Shamima Begum story doesn't exactly make you popular, so this really does mean a lot to all of us. Storytelling is obviously a team game, so I'd like to thank my amazing teammate Sarah, my incredible exec Sarah Waldron, who's hiding at the back of the room, and my producer Sasha Akili. Could I get a round of applause for them? I'd also like to say, a few weeks ago, I was covering the conflict that has affected all of us so much, and I was sat on the border of Gaza watching bombs fall as entire communities disappear. What I didn't know at that time is somebody we were filming with was killed in one of those strikes. His name is Rushdie Siraj. And I'd like to echo the comments that my colleague Jess so eloquently made earlier. I thought her speech was brilliant. Sarah and I would like to dedicate this award to all those covering the conflict in Gaza at this time. So thank you very much.
And now for our 6th award, the Travel and Tourism Story of the Year, which will be presented by Dr. Glenda Cooper, Deputy Director of the Journalism Department and BA Director at City University of London. She is also one of our external judges. Well, this was one of the closest contests of the night, as the judges felt that the entrants were all of the same incredibly high quality. The first nomination for Travel and Tourism Story of the Year is Stephen Bleach with Trailblazers, the holiday that changed the world, for the Sunday Times magazine. The judges praised this happy piece about the birth of the Lonely Planet travel guides on their 50th anniversary. The guides have changed the way we travel and have left an enormous legacy, both good and bad. Stephen Bleach interviewed the founders and meticulously researched the worldwide impact of this cultural phenomenon. The second nominee is Matt Rudd, again for the Sunday Times magazine, with Airbnb. An excellent investigation, well-researched with lots of new information. A thorough piece that illustrates how pervasive Airbnb has become in many of Britain's most popular tourist areas. Started as a way to make a bit of money by letting out your spare room, no one ever imagined the dramatic knock-on effect that the shift to short-term letting would have on so many villages, towns and cities, and the people who live in them. The third nominee in this category is a Guardian long read. It's Sally Williams with Dark Waters, How the Adventure of a Lifetime Turned to Tragedy. This exposed the dark side of the ultimate grown-up gap year pursuit, the Clipper Round the World yacht race, which has claimed several lives. The judges were impressed by the investigative work and effort that went into this to get justice for the family of a victim and to highlight the risks of adventure tourism. They thought it was beautifully written, with a sense of urgency and drama throughout. May I now invite Dr. Glenda Cooper of City University to reveal the winner.
And the winner of the Travel and Tourism Story of the Year is Matt Rudd for the Sunday Times magazine.
This was a very close contest. After much discussion, this story beat Dark Waters, the Guardian piece about the round-the-world yacht race, by just one vote. In heated discussion, it could have gone either way.
Stop saying this was really, really close. Thank you very much. This is a huge honour, but also I've got a very angry babysitter texting me, so I yield the floor to greater journalists. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Now we move on to the TV documentary feature story of the year. This award will be presented by the chair of this year's judges, Elodie Goulesque, award-winning freelance for French and Belgian outlets. Well, this was an extremely strong category, perhaps the toughest of the night, and the judges thought every single one of these 4 outstanding shortlisted documentaries could have won. One judge was so overcome with emotion after watching 2 of the shortlisted nominations that he had to go for a walk in the garden before he could watch the rest. The first nominees are Robin Barnwell, Darren Kemp, Hilary Anderson, Seri Solodko, Taras Shamaiko, with Mariupol, The People's Story, for Top Hat, and Hayloft Productions for the BBC. Some of the judges thought this documentary should be in a category of its own, as it's a film that tells the story of the Ukraine war with no commentary. The residents tell their own stories of months of bombing, suffering, and privations without interruption. Robin Barnwell's team then spent months gathering and verifying the extensive footage to provide this unique, visceral, and deeply moving picture of the destruction of a European city and the suffering of its citizens. It exposed the reality of war, from the moments of extreme terror down to the mundanity of makeshift nappies and overpacked cars. The second nominees in this category are the Fault Lines team, with The Killing of Shireen Abu Akleh for Fault Lines on Al Jazeera English. an excellent investigation into the shooting of the veteran Palestinian-American Al Jazeera journalist Shireen Abu Akleh by an Israeli sniper in the West Bank city of Jenin. This forensic account of the events that preceded the shooting and what immediately followed made great use of open source to cast doubts on Israel's claims that Shireen was killed in crossfire between Israeli forces and armed Palestinians, which made great use of open source. The judges said this was fantastically done and incredible. The ITV team are the third nomination for Inside Russia, Putin's War at Home for ITV and Hard Cash Productions. The inside story of defiant Russians risking their freedom to oppose Putin's war at home. This had to be filmed in secrecy across Putin's Russia. But despite this, the team was able to follow the lives of activists, a filmmaker, an academic, and 2 journalists investigating the true extent of Russian casualties. The judges praised the impressive production values, great shooting and editing, and courage involved in making this unique and very revealing documentary. The final nomination in this category is Majed Nasi, Sasha Joel Ekili, Dan Edge for BBC Current Affairs, Frontline PBS, and Passion documentaries, with Inside the Iranian Uprising. Director Majed Nasi downloaded over 100 hours of internet footage from the thousands of citizens who took to the streets in the uprising that followed the death of Mahsa Amini, a young Iranian girl in custody. She'd been arrested by the religious police for not wearing her hijab properly. This fascinating inside story with very effective use of social media gave extraordinary and rare insight into what has been happening across Iran, where an estimated over 500 people died and 16,000 were arrested. May I now invite Elodie Goulesk to reveal the winner.
Thank you. Just to say, they were truly all amazing documentaries, and you all deserve an award tonight, so it was truly inspiring. But there's a winner, only one. So this is the winners of the TV documentary of the year are Robin Barnwell, Darren Kemp, Hilary Anderson, Sarah Solotko, and Tara Sumekofer. Yeah. The BBC documentary in Mariupol. Thank you.
The judges argued over this category more than any other, as they thought that all these 4 documentaries were fantastic. In the end, the beautiful storytelling of Mariupol, told by its residents, triumphed. Let's watch Mariupol.
Я взяла телефон, потому что я приняла решение в какой-то момент фиксировать хронологию того, что с нами происходит, потому что интенсивность этой войны набирал ужас того, что происходило. Оно набирало такие неимоверные масштабы. Это просто пиздец уже.
Thank you, FPA. Thank you so much. I've just spent 3.5 months in Ukraine, and it's amazing how quickly we forget certain conflicts and move on to others, but for very good reasons as well. But the civilians of Ukraine are still under great threat and suffering. We're very grateful to a handful of very brave women, survivors, who spoke to us about their experience in Mariupol, who are still displaced. And I'm incredibly grateful to the BBC Panorama, for supporting long-form journalism of this kind it was a huge effort over 6 months by a big team, and I'm delighted that that BBC supported us, and Top Hat Productions, Darren Kemp, Hilary Anderson, and the rest of my team. Thank you so much.
Now we move on to the financial and economic story of the year, and I have great pleasure in inviting Pietro Como, Managing Director of Barabino and Partners, the Milan-based PR consultancy that has brought so much Italian flair to the printed materials at these awards. The first nomination in this category is from the Financial Times. It's Miles Johnson with Wagner Inc., a Russian warlord and his lawyers. A very important and detailed investigation into the business empire of the Russian mercenary leader Yevgeny Prigozhin, which extraordinarily revealed that the Wagner chief's war crimes had been enabled by lawyers in London. It also showed how these same lawyers had been used to set up complex networks of shell companies to avoid sanctions. The second nominee in this category is Harry Wallop with The Banana Unpeeled for the Sunday Times magazine. This is a remarkable and complex story about Britain's favourite fruit and most bought supermarket item, the banana, which costs just 16 pence. When the world agreed to eat just one variety of banana, a supply chain miracle began. But with only one variety, there is no variation in genetics, so the banana has no natural resistance to new diseases which are already damaging crops in Latin America. And the final nomination in this category is from Yifan Yu of Nikkei Asia with the US-China rare earths battle. This offered a fascinating perspective on the struggle for industrial supremacy in the rare earths metals that are essential for most modern technologies. Set in a global context, this relevant and topical piece shows that rare earths reserves are scattered around the world, from Brazil to Vietnam. California's metals mine used to be the world's largest, but lost the position to China, and now the United States is fighting back. It also highlighted how cutting-edge industries depend on the dirty business of hewing metals from rock. May I now invite Pietro Como to reveal the winner.
The winner of the financial and economic story of the year is Harry Wallop.
Well, the judges thought this was a brilliant example of how to tell a complex story with wit and verve, and that economic stories can reach a wider audience. One of them, a declared banana consumer, said it was fascinating and so well told.
Well, I feel a bit of a fraud because this was just about a humble banana. It wasn't about war or destruction or misery or conflict. A brief thanks. Thank you very much to the FPA, but crucially to the Sunday Times and the Sunday Times magazine. I'm freelance, and they are prepared to pay freelancers to spend lots of time to go off and investigate things. To all other freelancers out there, and to all the magazines and newspapers and TV channels that employ them, yay.
And now we move on to our 9th award of the evening, the Arts and Culture Story of the Year, sponsored by Campari Group, providers of all the delicious cocktails we enjoyed before dinner, and those little pink bottles of Campari soda on the tables for you to take home. Tonight's award will be presented by Cesare Vandini, Managing Director for Northern, Central and Eastern Europe at Campari Group. In this category, the first nominees are Mobeen Ajar and Megumi Inman with Predator, The Secret Scandal of J-Pop, a film for BBC Current Affairs, a compelling exploration of allegations of sexual abuse at Johnny Kitagawa's legendary male-only talent agency, which trained young boys to become superstars in Japan. The judges were impressed that this documentary had overcome the many difficulties posed by a closed Japanese society and told the story in a very fresh way. The second nominee is Sam Knight with An Uncertain Image for The New Yorker. This looks at the forbidding, opaque world of authentication at the top end of the contemporary art world. The owner of a disputed Lucian Freud has been carrying out an extraordinary campaign to overturn the artist's rejection of his own work. With an amazing amount of research, Sam Knight examined each side's claims to reveal that authentication is a closed, secretive, and litigious realm riddled with conflicts of interest. The jury thought this was a great yarn, entertainingly told, and Sam Knight at his best. The third nomination goes to Jonathan Miller, Nick Blakemore, Youssef Hamash, Claire Pringle, Andy Lee, Ed Fraser, with an entry from Unreported World, Channel 4, Gaza, Daring to Dream. A charming, gentle story from Gaza shot in September last year after a series of Israeli airstrikes. The film explored the underground art scene where young Gazans were trying to express themselves in the face of both an Israeli blockade and the censors of the Islamist government. The judges said it was really effective storytelling and beautifully shot. The film focused attention on the powerful role of culture in day-to-day life and the harsh limits on something we often take for granted. The final nomination is Jen Stout with Hunting for Vakulenko for The New Humanist. The judges commended Jen Stout's perseverance for sticking with this great story about the search for the murdered children's writer Volodymyr Vakulenko in eastern Ukraine. It's set in the context of the long persecution of Ukrainian culture, particularly its writers, by Russia. They found it so emotive and touching and felt that she'd left no stone unturned in trying to paint the fullest picture possible. So I now invite Cesare Vandini, Managing Director of Campari Group for Northern and Central Eastern Europe, to reveal the winner.
The winner for the Art and Culture Story of the Year are Jonathan Miller, Nick Blakemore, Youssef Hamash, Claire Pringle, and Leanne and A. Fraser for Channel 4, Unreported World. Congratulations.
Well, in the end, this was very nearly unanimous. One judge said that she liked all of the entries and found this category the most difficult to judge, but a film about Gaza from a very different angle, unrelated to war and beautifully shot, won in the end. Let's watch Gaza, Daring to Dream.
The liberal arts and political Islam do not sit happily, and women over the age of 14 can't perform in public. At 19, Rahaf is already an accomplished actress and musician. Rahaf's band boasts millions of views on YouTube, but as Gaza's first female street performer, she's flirting with danger, running the gauntlet of the morality police.
أتقبل طبيعة بلدي وأتأقلم معها لأنه حلمي عكس كل يعني عكس بلدي، عكس قوانين بلدي وعكس عادات بلدي، فهذا قرار كتير صعب.
The award is being accepted on behalf of the Unreported World team by Ed Fraser. Sadly, Youssef Hamash, who made this film possible, can't be here tonight as he's trapped in Gaza. But he has sent this video message.
Thank you for the Film Press Association for recognizing the film and recognizing the hardship of Palestinians who live in Gaza are going through now. I lost the electricity. I'll continue. Thank you for Channel 4 who came here while we feel that most of the world media have forgotten about us. I'm extremely grateful for everyone who participated and contributed in this film, as it was their willingness to speak out to the world about what's going on here. And I'm really happy to inform you that all of them are currently safe. Over a year ago, when I was working with Jonathan and Nick to make this film, it was hard, but unfolding in front of our eyes is heartbreaking and unimaginable. I couldn't imagine for a moment in my life that we will live through this chaos around us. The film called Daring to Dream, as people back then were dreaming to have a better life, perhaps outside of Gaza. Now, all what we want is to survive. But every bit of awareness helps. That's why this award is very welcome, especially now. I believe with the right people, with the right amount of power, can bring an end for this chaos. Thank you.
This is a huge honour for the Unreported World team at a time when Gaza is at the centre of the world's attention. We'd like to thank Channel 4 for its support, and in particular Naveen Mabro and Louisa Compton, who backed the film. Also Andy, the series producer, who pushed to make it happen, and Claire, who brought this film to life. Huge thanks to Nick Blakemore and Jonathan Miller, who can't be here tonight. Jonathan sent us a few words he asked me to read. We'd like to dedicate this award to the courageous actors, singers, dancers, writers and filmmakers we met while making our film. We'd also like to dedicate it to all the heroic journalists in Gaza and the memory of the 48 journalists who've been killed since October 7th. I'm glad to say all those featured in our documentary, as well as those who helped to make it, are perhaps miraculously still alive. They include Ahmed, our driver and guardian angel, and Khaled, our great friend and fixer. And on behalf of us all, of course, Youssef Hamash, who's been documenting this latest conflict for Channel 4 News and its human impact with searing eyewitness journalism. He's living this war, trying to keep his family safe, and like so many people, he can't leave. Youssef, your work is important, it's vital, and it's greatly needed, so we thank you.
And so now for the Thompson Foundation Young Journalist of the Year Awards, which is always one of the highlights of this evening. To present this award, it gives me huge pleasure to invite Chairman of the Thompson Foundation to the stage, Lord Chandos. For the Young Journalist Award, entrants are asked to submit a sample of 3 pieces of their work from the last year. This year, over 240 young journalists from around the world took part, and from these, 3 finalists have been selected. The judges thought that all these candidates were fantastic storytellers and impressive young writers. All deserved recognition, especially for their bravery in tackling difficult and often taboo subjects. The first nominee is Jemima Afridi, a freelance reporter and filmmaker with 3 online stories about Pakistan for Nikkei Asia and Asia Democracy Chronicle. Jemima's first 2 stories were about the difficulties faced by women in Pakistan. The first looked at the lives of the Afghan women who flee to Pakistan, swapping one dangerous life for another. Her second covers women's inheritance rights, and the third about enforced disappearances in Balochistan. The judges praised her well-documented handling of sensitive topics and found her writing very moving. The second nominee is Yara El-Mour from Lebanon, where she's a journalist for the Public Source, a Beirut-based independent media organization. Yara's stories were about a family of migrants leaving Tripoli for Europe on a boat that capsized, and people went missing. How global warming and the changing seasons are affecting local agriculture and the insecurity of Lebanon's disaster management strategies. The story about the missing was a tragic first-hand account, described as compelling, chilling, and beautifully written. The other two, on disaster preparedness and climate change, were well researched and written. The final nominee in this category is also from Pakistan. It's Zua Siddiqui, a freelance journalist specializing in labor and tech matters with stories for Vice, Rest of the World, and Unbiased the News. The judges enjoyed the diversity of Zua's work. They thought she showed great skill in telling the story of 16 children who died in one of Karachi's low-lying slums due to the release of toxic gases from an illegal industrial area. Her story led to the health department closing the factories. She also looked at the impact on Pakistan's IT industry caused by government shutdowns to clamp down on protests and houses in Karachi that were destroyed because they encroached on the city's drainage. Let's now watch as the three candidates introduce their stories and what it means to them to be here tonight.
My story, tribal women pursuing inheritance right in the face of opposition, is about tribal women who are consistently battling to obtain their legitimate inheritance, which has always been denied in tribal areas. Being shortlisted as one of the top 3 young journalists will not only help me in my career, but will also inspire other women to be the best version of their self.
Being nominated for awards like this one is incredibly inspiring. It gives me the will and the courage to keep going. When my stories are able to achieve impact, either in the form of something changing on ground, a new government policy, or a court case, or when they're picked up by local media, I feel inspired and re-energized as I take on new projects and new challenges.
The story I submitted to the Young Journalist Award is titled Intercepted at Sea, and it's a 3-part investigation into the human cost of border control. For a month, I followed the story of Hashim Mitlaj, a young, sensitive artist from Tripoli, one of Lebanon's poorest cities. On April 23, 2022, he and 80 others tried to cross the Mediterranean. Lebanese army intercepted their boat minutes before they reached international waters, and the boat sank. 40 people died that night. Many survived, some were detained. Hashim remains missing. I've read articles and I've watched documentaries that have made me cry and learn and change my mind and want to advocate for a cause, and I only hope that my work can do the same.
Before I ask Lord Chandos to reveal our winner, I'd like to ask all 3 of our fabulous nominees to join us on stage.
As we've heard, all 3 are winners, but there is, in the traditions of award ceremonies, one winner, who is Yara Al-Mour from Lebanon.
Thank you. It's such an honor to be here among really inspiring and brilliant journalists, especially Zuha and Jemima, that I've had the pleasure to get to know over the past day. I would like to thank FPA and the Thompson Foundation for nurturing this beautiful network and for inviting us, 3 brown women from the Global South, to be part of this platform. I think our presence here is really a testament to the power and the importance of local journalism that serves its local communities and connects their struggle to global policies and global narratives. As an example, the migration story on how migration policies in the EU affect the daily lives of some of the most marginalized communities across the Mediterranean. So tonight I hold in my thought Hashan Mithlij and all the families whose loved ones lay in the bottom of the Mediterranean still. And I would like to thank my newsroom, The Public Source. It's a small, independent, completely women-run organization operating in a country where there are constant attacks on press freedoms. And since this is a Young Journalist Award, I would like to dedicate it to the courageous young journalists in Gaza, some in their early 20s and younger, Plestia, Bisan, Hind, Mu'taz, and many others who are risking their lives every day to document what's happening. And lastly, I would like to honor all of our colleagues who were killed over the past few months, especially those deliberately targeted by Israel for being journalists on the ground. May we honor their legacies by continuing the pursuit of truth and justice. Thank you.
Well, now we move on to our 11th award, a new one for these awards, the City University MA Student Foreign Correspondent. This celebrates the top 3 students on City's postgraduate course in international journalism, which aids the formation of future foreign correspondents. It also marks the beginning of the FPA's partnership with City University, who will also provide a home for the FPA's archive dating back to its founding in 1888. Tonight's award will be presented by Alan Rusbridger, editor of Prospect magazine and former editor of The Guardian, a paper that won the Pulitzer Prize under his editorship in 2014. In this category, the first nominee is Naya Dillon. Is Alan here? Was Alan waiting to leap up? He's left. I see. Okay, in this category, the first nominee, thank you, Deborah. In this category, the first nominee is Naya Dillon with Riots in Martinique, an informative story that deep dives into Martinique, a place that doesn't get much coverage in the English language media. It shows a real effort with storytelling. The on-the-ground reporting helps to create a sense of place, and a great variety of voices throughout help to make the piece an engaging and interesting read. The second nominee is Maya Saad with Lebanon Tragedy at Sea, another deeply revealing and important story focusing on what drives people to undertake perilous Mediterranean crossings, shedding light on the particular crisis in Lebanon. The story that had excellent access to individuals and the families directly affected, which was dealt with great sensitivity. Maya is not from Lebanon, but managed to get all the right interviewees to produce a well-balanced and topical report which showed great humanity. The third nomination goes to Polly Thompson with Louisiana Death Row, a strong take on how the death penalty is on trial in the southern US state of Louisiana. With good interviewees and comment from both sides, this powerful and well-researched story looks at the fight over the use of the death penalty, which is increasingly polarized between those that want to abolish it and those that want to accelerate executions. May I now invite Deborah to reveal the winner.
I'm not Alan Rusbridger, but still, hey, bear with me.
winner of the City MA Student Foreign Correspondent is Maya Saad.
Maya was voted the clear winner by the judges, who thought her story was exceptional and emotionally powerful. Let's watch Lebanon Tragedy at Sea.
Tripoli was once celebrated as a thriving commercial hub, but today it is the poorest city on the Mediterranean coast. Along with surrounding towns, it has become a major departure point for what the Lebanese refer to as the death boats.
ما بيقولوا عشنا الموت بالبحر.
مسافرين هربانين من الفقر، من الذل، من التعطيل.
نحن كبلدية ما لنا علاقة بالقصة، يعني لا أمنيا ولا لوجستيا ولا شيء. هيدي شغلة أمن عام.
This boat was carrying more than 200 people when it capsized. A mother and her child lost their lives, and the Mediterranean Sea now bears a new title as Europe's migrant graveyard.
Thank you so much. I'll keep it brief because everyone has spoken a lot. I'd like to thank City Journalism and my wonderful professor Zahira Harib for all her support and everyone that supported me. And I'm not going to repeat what a lot of nominees said, but again, I'd like to dedicate this award to all the journalists that have been killed in Gaza and to my friend and Reuters video journalist Isam Abdullah, who was killed on the 13th of October covering the southern border of Lebanon. Let's not forget their sacrifice and keep fighting for impartial and fair journalism. Thank you very much.
And now we move on to the penultimate award, the Science Story of the Year. This award will be presented by Onur Ake, CEO of one of tonight's silver sponsors, Dentacare. They offer a wide range of dental services to patients from around the world at their clinics in Turkey. Their motto is, "We make you smile." And well, our first nominee is Ben Spencer, writing in the Sunday Times magazine with Disease X. With viral outbreaks on the rise, this piece looks at the scientists racing to stop the next pandemic before it begins. It begins with the top 10 priority pathogens that could spark the next epidemic and how prepared the world is for them. The conclusion is that although outbreaks are inevitable, pandemics are optional. The judges thought this was a timely and clear-eyed assessment of the big killers now and how we can manage to stop them in the future. The second nomination is Samanth Subramanian with a Guardian long read, Dismantling Sellafield, the epic task of shutting down a nuclear site. This describes the long, expensive and extraordinarily complex process of decommissioning a nuclear plant, and about how science can try to rectify decisions made 3/4 of a century ago. The story begins with the birth of uranium and ends with the projected completion of a nuclear disposal facility in Finland in the 22nd century that is designed to last 1 million years. The judges found the idea that the history of Sellafield so far is only a fraction of its long shadow very compelling. And the final nominee for Science Story of the Year is John Sudworth, Simon Mabin and Richard Vedon for Fever, The Hunt for COVID's Origin on BBC Radio 4. A 3-year investigation into the question of where COVID came from. John Sudworth was the BBC's China correspondent when an unexplained pneumonia first appeared in Wuhan in 2019. His dogged pursuit of an answer to the COVID origin question took him all over China. Despite the idea of a lab leak being dismissed as a conspiracy theory, John and his team dug deep into what we do and don't know, and what was really going on behind the scenes as science and geopolitics clashed. May I now invite Ona Ake to reveal the winner.
The winner of Science Story of the Year is Samantu Romanian for The Guardian long read.
This was a tough field with three very worthy contestants. The Sellafield story just pipped it for the judges as it was so clearly and succinctly told and gave the reader a genuine insight into the difficulties of dealing with nuclear energy.
I'll keep it very brief as I am not Samant Subramanian. But just wanted to say thank you to The Guardian for making long-form journalism at The Guardian possible, and to my colleague Claire Longrig, with whom I edit all the pieces. So thank you very much, and congrats to Samant.
And now we move on to the final and most prestigious award of the night, the Journalist of the Year. I now invite His Excellency Dr. Abdullah Al-Harasi, Minister of Information of the Sultanate of Oman, and the FPA's gold sponsor, back to the stage. Well, the winner has been chosen from all the finalists in all 12 categories tonight, and celebrates the journalist who excelled in the last year. The judges were particularly pleased to award the 2023 FPA Journalist of the Year to someone who hasn't put themselves forward. His low profile was notable in an age when everyone is pushed in front of the camera, and they admire him for stepping back and giving a voice to the real people. A journalist and filmmaker whose outstanding documentary was described as harrowing and intense, but essential viewing. May I now ask His Excellency Dr. Al-Harasi to reveal the winner.
So the winner is Robin Barnwell.
Robin Barnwell directed, produced and filmed Mariupol, The People's Story, the winner of tonight's documentary category, and he's a very worthy winner of the FPA's Journalist of the Year. The judges felt this was a very good choice, as he is a remarkable journalist. Let's watch.
Настя молчала. Молчала, просто молчала. Она все такая сказала: мама, а еще, там мы переступали.
Mariupol is not planned to be occupied, but it just destroyed.
Це не сон, що це твоє життя зараз.
Здесь беженцы прятались в драмтеатре, которые сбежали с окраин города в надежде, что их пощадят.
Я взяла телефон, потому что я приняла решение в какой-то момент фиксировать хронологию того, что с нами происходит, потому что интенсивность этой войны набирал ужас того, что происходило. Оно набирало такие неимоверные масштабы.
Они просто хотели выжить.
Я до сих пор не могу воспринять, мое подсознание не может воспринять все произошедшее как реально.
отсюда!
Каждый день, сука, так по 50 раз в день. Мамочка, Анечка, боженька, боженька, мамочка, Анечка, спасибо.
Thank you, FPA, for this great honour. Thank you so much. There are many people in this room who deserve this prize. It's amazing to see so much brilliant journalism on display tonight. It's very uplifting. And congratulations to all the nominees and winners. I'm delighted to be here, and thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that brings our evening to a close. Well, at least this part of the evening to a close. The bar remains open till 1 a.m. Our lovely sponsors from Oman are offering delicious treats for you as you leave the dining room. And that is all from the stage. Thank you all very much indeed. A very good night to you all.